Hey everyone, this is BlackHawkSC and welcome back to this channel. In this video I'll provide a general overview of the newly released clan battle mech, the Supernova, including its strengths and weaknesses. I'll then demo the builds that I run on 3 of the 6 variants. In the second part of the series, I'll run by the 3 other builds not included here. I'll also tell you where I think the chassis ranks overall among the clan assaults. By the way, this video was made possible by a generous gift by one of my viewers. So, if you like the contents of this channel and like to see timely videos about new mech releases, please do consider supporting it through Patreon or YouTube's fan funding feature. I think the best way to describe the Supernova is if you try to imagine if the Marauder 2C and the Direwolf had a baby, and that's what the Supernova really is. Its weight sits right in between the Dire and the Mat 2C at 90 tons, and all 3 chassis are chicken walkers. Like the Mat 2C, it's a clan battle mech, which means you can change the armor and structure type. It has a mix of high and low mounted hardpoints, and its side profile is very similar as well. On the other hand, like the Direwolf, it's very slow, with its max engine capped at 325. And due to many of the variants' reliance on energy weapons, and its inability to fill up free tonnage with larger engines, you'll also find that most builds on the Supernova has the weight-saving features like Pharaoh and sometimes Endo turned off. This is a situation similar to the Direwolf, which also has standard armor and structure. The primary strength of the Supernova is that it's a 90-tonner, so it can take a lot of punishment. I feel the hitboxes are okay from the front, as it's able to evenly spread damage across the mech. It neither has a giant CT like Dire, nor are its STs as large as the Mat 2Cs, although they are still not small either. Unlike the Executioner, it can actually carry a real assault mech weapon payload because it doesn't have any locked equipment. And unlike the Highlander 2C, it's not plagued by a mess of hardpoints, and in this game, boating tends to work better than mixed weapon types. By the way, if you'd like to learn more about weapon synergies, I did an entire series on the topic, which I'll link in the description below. The hardpoints are split between high torso mounts and lower arm mounts. This is right on par with average mechs in the game, so I don't consider that either a positive or a negative. There are mechs with worse and better hardpoint locations. I feel that the Supernova has 2 main weaknesses. First is its low engine cap, which makes it hard to use up all the available tonnage. The XL325 gives us way too much free tonnage, but not enough slots to fill it with all the DHS necessary to cool something like 6 to 8 big energy weapons. The engine cap also keeps the mech fairly slow. The second issue is how wide the arm mounts are. If the arms are only low, then you can side peek, and it won't be that big of a deal. But if they're both low and wide, it means that if you want to get out all of your firepower, you have to be really far out of cover. The wide arms also means that convergence really sucks for projectile weapons. If you're unfamiliar with weapon convergence and how it affects gameplay, I did a brief guide on it, which I'll also link in the description. Okay, before I go into the builds, let me tell you a little bit about my build philosophy. If I own multiple variants of a chassis, I try really hard to make each of them use a different playstyle. This does sometimes result in builds that are not the most optimal for a particular variant, but they'll still be kind of close in my opinion. This gets a little bit tricky with the Supernova because most of them are energy boats, and the engine cap forces you to use big long-range weapons to fill in that tonnage. We'll see in this variant that we kind of force a short-range build on. So if you follow what I do, your options are kind of limited. I'm also not doing full demos of these builds in this video due to time limitations, but maybe eventually I'll highlight 1 or 2 variants to do a full guide on. Moving on to the builds, here we have the Boiler Hero variant with a dual Gauss dual ERPPC setup. You can imagine that this is pretty effective, but among the other clan assaults that can do this build, unfortunately I feel that the Boiler does it the worst. First, the second Gauss rifle on the left arm is way out there, which means you have to expose the entire chassis to get out your full alpha. The second problem is that the Gauss and ERPPCs are in 2 different reticles that can move independently of each other horizontally. This isn't a problem on Omnimechs that have no lower arm actuators, or on those that can remove the actuator. What this means is that to adjust your reticle for movement, you have to either arm lock or wait for the 2 reticles to settle before you fire your weapons, or just fire them separately. The KDK-3, the Direwolf, and the Mat 2C Scorch all have at least one of these problems, but not both at the same time. But otherwise, it's still a pretty good build. Do remember though, if you have the GXP and C builds to unlock and buy the Gauss range and CD modules, you should have them on there. In general, you want to right side peek as much as possible and use the high mounted energy only if you don't think the gods will clear an obstacle. On the Supernova 1, I break the rule of having all long-range weapons in favor of 8 NPLs. This is mostly to get some variety into my builds. As you can see, we disabled most of the weight-saving features that are available to us, including carrying a standard engine. With the Clan XL engine getting nerfed so hard in the Bushwhacker patch, and the Supernova's low engine cap, the standard engine in this case isn't such a terrible idea. I did initially use quad ERPPCs on this variant, but I think the C would do it better due to its higher mounted energy hardpoints. I demoed the quad ERPPC version at the intro of this video, so if you're curious, you can go back and check it out. But in this build, since weapons are spread across the width of this chassis, you're usually not looking for direct trades with the enemy, as they will typically have a lot of time to take aim and take a good shot back at you. Rather, it's preferable to find angles where you're not getting any return fire. As a 90-tonner, you do have some armor to spare, so don't hide all the time, and do take some aggressive peeks occasionally. That is as long as you're not peeking against 3 or 4 enemies at the same time. This is one of the cooler running Supernova builds, so it does relatively well in hot maps like Tourmaline. The third and final variant in this video is the Supernova III. This setup will at first look similar to standard laser vomit, but it really plays more like a large pulse boat with a laser vomit option. Because of the better heat efficiency and range of the LPLs, you really want to stay at past 600 meters most of the time. I really start using the ERMLs when there's no other choice but to fight at mid or close range, in which case you can corner and peek with either side. The ERMLs are also a little higher up than the LPLs, so they're also useful when you feel that you can't get enough clearance. As with other ranged builds, try to get into the fight as early as possible and move up to mid-range when your team decides to push. Always favor using the LPLs unless you're making direct trades with the enemy, in which case you might want to side peek with the 2 LPLs and 3 MLs for lower face time. Alright guys, this concludes part 1 of my look at the Supernova. In part 2, I'll show you my builds on the A, B, and C variants, as well as give you my opinion on where the Supernova ranks in the clan assault hierarchy. I'll probably also do a full demo of one of the builds, so please make sure to subscribe for these updates. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.